In today's video, you'll learn exactly why President Vladimir Putin is winning the propaganda war, and more importantly, why he's winning the war in Ukraine. I'm Christopher Green, and you're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. Before we get started, please support our sponsor, goldsilver.com. That's goldsilver.com. Get your low-cost bullion discreetly delivered to your door or to your private non-bank vault storage account at Brinks. Exclusive free shipping for AMTV customers through the end of June. Use AMTV promo code AMTVFREEUSA on any size domestic order. Vladimir Putin is winning the propaganda war, and he's winning the war in Ukraine. This is at the expense of the United States, the American people, and is the result of a mass destabilization effort led by the United States government, statist-run media, and covert intelligence programs. Recently, truth teller Edward Snowden came to the forefront and leaked a massive intelligence docket that exposed the United States and its vast anti-constitutional spy grid, overt and covert operations at the NSA at the highest levels of government office, and has directly violated constitutional liberties and has threatened the very safety and sovereignty of the American people. Having since helped the Washington Post and Guardian win the Pulitzer Prize, Edward Snowden, an American hero, has had to seek refuge in Russia and has largely been ostracized by the same criminals in Washington, D.C. that he exposed. So what role, if any, did the Russian government and Vladimir Putin have in this historically, some argue may be the most significant intelligence breach in recent history? Vladimir Putin, a former KGB officer, now turned president, has every intent on rebuilding an empire and destiny he believes was unrightfully stolen from the Russian people. This is exactly why the United States has been actively engaging in war games, covert operations in foreign lands like Libya, Syria, and now the Ukraine. Ukraine, a strategic checkpoint for the Russian Navy, hosting the Black Sea Fleet in the Crimea region, is also an economic powerhouse for the exportation of Russian natural gas. That gas is exported from Russia through the Ukraine and is roughly responsible for 30% of all natural gas exports, 70% of which is depended upon by the EU. Again, this is exactly why the United States, along with its European allies, are actively engaged in a destabilization effort in the Ukraine. Money. Late last week, the Wall Street Journal reported that Russia's energy minister questioned Ukraine's ability to pay for Russian natural gas and said that state-controlled Gazprom will ask that deliveries scheduled in June be paid for up front. The Russian government, of which has been providing steep subsidies, by the way, to the Ukraine until now, threatens a supply disruption to its European customers. And this is precisely why the mainstream media, statist-controlled propaganda machines like CNN and MSNBC, are helping to play their part to build a narrative for war, one that the American people can conveniently support in the Ukraine, hook, line, and sinker. But this is extremely dangerous, and it very well may indeed be the flashpoint for a global engagement unlike anything we've ever seen. So what are the facts? Just a few months ago, the rightful president of Ukraine, Viktor Yanukovych, was ousted by Molotov cocktail-wielding terrorists wearing gas masks backed by the United States and Western interests. This would be the equivalent of Vladimir Putin arming Occupy Wall Street with grenade launchers and machine guns to overthrow the Obama administration here in the U.S. This new puppet government has since taken over and is not the rightful or legal government of the Ukraine, and Putin has not invaded this part of the world in any way. Simply, he's responded to an attack by the United States. This point is extremely important. Russia hasn't invaded anything. They haven't invaded the Ukraine, nor has Putin's military buildup on the border been an invasion. It's Russia that is under attack, the people of Ukraine, and those that have been ousted by a violent coup that are the real victims. We know, based on intelligence leaks provided by Estonian Foreign Minister Urmas Paet and EU Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton, for instance, that the snipers behind the attacks in Ukraine during the recent terrorist attack were not snipers of the Yanukovych government, as the U.S. mainstream media wants you to believe, but instead the Western-backed insurgents that have recently overthrown the Ukrainian government. Not only have they been killing innocents, but the insurgents have been shooting at both sides of the conflict.
Breaking news. A leaked phone call reveals the same snipers were shooting at both protesters and police in Kiev. RT's Marina Kossova joins us now live with more on this. Who was behind those snipers, Dan?
Absolutely. Well, all this information is in fact becoming public after a phone conversation was leaked and is now accessible to everyone who wants to listen in, and it is on YouTube. And that conversation, in fact, is between the EU Foreign Chief Catherine Ashton and also we have the Estonian Foreign Affairs Minister. And Catherine Ashton in that phone conversation is in fact asking him about his impressions of Ukraine, where he just returned from, and he said the picture is looking sad, and more importantly, and it's quite an eye-opener, this one is the fact that snipers were, as you said, Marina, were shooting both at protesters and officials, both sides really. So let's listen into what he had to say.
All the evidence shows that people who were killed by snipers from both sides, among policemen and people from the streets, that they were the same snipers killing people from both sides.
Well, yeah.
So that, and then she also showed me some photos. She said that has medical doctor. She can, say that it is the same handwriting, the same type of bullets, and it's really disturbing that now the new coalition, that they don't want to investigate what exactly happened. So that there is now stronger and stronger understanding that behind snipers it was not Yanukovych, but it was somebody from the new coalition.
This is damning information, and it contradicts the Western narrative that the Ukrainian people have been supportive of a Western coup. Not only does this conflict with reports from Western media outlets like CNN, but it delegitimizes an already illegitimate puppet government. It also means that the Ukrainian people are no safer under Western control than they were under the previous administration. And what is the health of the Ukrainian people at this given moment? Not only has there been bloodshed, but civilians are being murdered at an ever-increasing rate, and the region is engaged in a violent civil war. Is this the peace and democracy Secretary of State John Kerry and others in Washington, D.C. have been talking about? And what about democracy? The people of Crimea, a largely Russian-speaking population, just voted with over a 95% popular vote in referendum to join Russia. Why doesn't the United States respect the will of the people? Reports from the Jerusalem Post indicate that the Odessa Jewish community is contemplating an emergency evacuation from the region should the violence in the western Ukrainian city get significantly worse. But once again, the mainstream media is playing the Jew card. Note the publisher, in order to paint Putin as the next Hitler and alienate him from the international community. This, of course, is bullshit, and it's a lie. Putin hasn't invaded Ukraine. The U.S. and EU have through their proxy, the IMF, the World Bank, and the United Nations. Case in point, the IMF recently approved a $17 billion bailout to the newly elected Ukrainian government. Again, all this does is saddle the Ukrainian people with even more debt and force their indebtedness to Western control. You see how it works? How does this benefit the Ukrainian people? And is Ukraine really safer now than it was when Yanukovych was president? The American people are slowly beginning to realize that the entire event in Ukraine, just like Syria, just like Libya, Iraq, and Afghanistan, has been orchestrated and manufactured by the United States and its counterparts. The question you need to ask is why? The answers of which some may be obvious, others not so, unlock the key to the war currently being fought on Russia's border. A war, the Ukrainian Prime Minister and many others say, could start World War III. It is clear that the United States is losing the war. A propaganda war currently being fought by the United States, the EU, and many Americans simply no longer trust their government after continuous and ongoing revelations from truth-tellers like Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, and many others drive home this point. I'm Christopher Green, and you're watching AMTV, Alternative Media Television, hard-hitting and in your face. Please share this video everywhere, follow us on social media, and click the link below to support our sponsor.